Jiri Prochazka versus Carlos Ulberg is going down in the main event for UFC 327, which means, of course, we need to break it down. Now, honestly, this isn't the flashiest of title fights on paper. Jiri Prochazka, Carlos Ulberg. Yuri's a pretty big name, Carlos not so much, but this could still be a very fun fight because of who's in there. I mean, we already know Jiri is one of the most exciting fighters in the UFC, hands down, that's not a question. But when you have a guy on the other side like Carlos Ulberg who does hit hard and is extremely technical, it can usually lead to a really fun fight. Or it can lead to a boring points match, but I can't imagine that in any sort of Jiri fight, even when you're expecting him to not have the upper hand. Listen, I picked Jiri against pretty much all of his previous opponents, Khalil, Jamal. I just think when you get technical against Jiri, you can beat him. We saw that with Alex Pereira, but clearly, Alex Pereira was just an anomaly because Jiri does not lose to a lot of these dudes besides Alex because he's just automatic. It's just the way he fights in these fights. Yes, it looks like he's losing at some points. Khalil Roundtree, he looked like he was losing that. Even Alexander Rakic, it looked like he was losing that in the first round, and then he comes back and gets the finish. Jiri is automatic, and he's just a very tough guy to put away because he will not go down. And then you have Carlos Ulberg on the other side, who isn't as wild, isn't as entertaining at all, honestly, but he's very smart and he's very technical. He's riding a great win streak, and he's beaten big names like Jan Blachowicz, Volkan Ozdemir, and most recently, he knocked out Dominic Reyes. Yes, it's not the top of the light heavyweight division, but it's still really good competition in such a short amount of time. It's a strikers versus strikers matchup. That's what we are going to get in this fight. You're going to see Carlos Ulberg take the smart and tactical approach, probably stay on the back foot and pick his shots, while you're going to see Jiri applying the pressure and staying on the front foot. And it makes for a perfect stylistic matchup, honestly. Like, whether you think Juri's going to win, whether you think Carlos is going to win, this should be a fun fight either way. Jiri is definitely the more explosive between the two, but I'm not sure if he hits harder. Carlos Ulberg hits hard. He's put a lot of dudes to sleep comfortably. So is Jiri, of course, but I think the power difference isn't very big. I think the speed I would favor with Jiri Prochazka, but if Yuri's hands are going to be down, then Carlos is going to have the speed advantage if he's in a boxing stance because he can work off his jab very effectively and it's very quick. But Jiri didn't do that in his last fight, so I don't expect him to this time. He's going to keep his hands up, especially against a dangerous striker with power like Carlos Ulberg. I do think Jiri has to be a lot more calm this time out, though. I don't think he wants to really be chasing a finish. The difference between Carlos Ulberg and his previous opponents is that with Jamal and Khalil, yes, they were technical and more technical than Jiri, but that wasn't their main game plan, and that's not their bread and butter. If you want to turn it into a bit of a war, into a bit of a bloodbath, they're totally going to accept that, and they're going to actually invite it at some point. But with Carlos Ulberg, I don't think you're going to get that. I think you're going to see Carlos be a lot smarter. He's not going to be tempted into any sort of bloodbath because he knows what happens when you get into a war with Jiri. You don't usually come out on top. I think this match is going to also test Jiri's patience. We've seen him come back when he's been in the fire. We've seen what happens when he fights a very technical dude like Alex Pereira. So let's see if he can learn from that. Let's see if he can build from that. Because if he can, I mean, who's to say he can't be the champ for a very long time? The dude's entertaining. He's beaten a lot of the competition already, and now if he gets a win against Carlos Ulberg under his belt, that's a great resume that he's building at 205. I don't expect to see any grappling in this fight whatsoever. These two are going to stay on the feet for as long as it lasts. Do I think it's going to the judges' scorecards? Absolutely not. Even if Carlos Ulberg stays patient and stays technical and tries to pick Jiri apart for 25 minutes, I still don't think that's going to happen. I think he'll end up getting a finish or something like that will happen. Either way, that's not what I'm picking, though. I think you guys can kind of tell I'm leaning towards Jiri Prochazka in this matchup because I still really like him. Yes, this is going to be a lot more dangerous than Jamal Hill and Khalil Roundtree because Ulberg's going to operate on his back foot and he's not going to be tempted into any sort of war like the other two were. But still, Jiri has that power, he has that dynamite, and he has that energy and the relentlessness to where he's never going to back down at any point, and he's always going to come back. And I haven't seen that dog in Carlos Ulberg yet. I don't know what's going to happen if Jiri does be successful and ends up making it a bloodbath. I also don't think Carlos has fought anybody as quick and as relentless as Jiri in his entire career, so I think you have to also take a look at that. You have to remember, this is a title fight. first time under the spotlight for Carlos Ulberg. Jiri, he's been here a million times before. This is like nothing to him at this point. I think a lot of things are leaning towards Jiri Prochazka. I think a lot more people would be happy if Jiri won, and I can expect Jiri to get a finish in this fight at some point. I'm going to say Jiri gets a win via KO or TKO in the 3rd or 4th round. I think Carlos is going to have his way at the beginning. He's going to operate on the back foot. He's going to control the tempo of the fight. But Jiri, he's going to stay relentless. He's going to be resilient, and he's going to make it a dogfight, and he's going to get his hand raised in the end. That's my official pick. Jiri Prochazka to win by KO. Let me know if you guys agree with me in the comments. Also, be on the lookout for some of the other UFC 327 content going down throughout the week. I'm going to be giving my whole picks for the card and much more. So be on the lookout for that as well.